Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, where imagination meets the infinite cosmos. If you love gripping tales of humanity's resilience and ingenuity, you've come to the right place. Subscribe, and let's journey together into the stars. When the Galactic Council first set its sights on humanity, they expected submission, tribute, and servitude. What they received instead was a declaration that would change the balance of the galaxy forever. Humans were nobody's subjects. The Galactic Council's envoy arrived with an arrogance befitting rulers who had never known defiance. Its ship, a sleek and ominous construct, appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit, an unspoken promise of annihilation should humanity disobey. From the moment it arrived, the skies seemed darker, as if the very presence of the vessel cast a shadow over the world. For hours it loomed above, unmoving, studying its prey. Humanity watched in silence, unease spreading like wildfire. This was not a first contact scenario filled with hope and diplomacy. This was a predator assessing its next meal. Every major city held its breath as the signal came, a voice, mechanical and cold, carried across every frequency. Attention, inhabitants of Sol 3. You are now subjects of the Galactic Council. Compliance ensures survival. Defiance ensures extinction. The demands followed, each one designed to crush any thought of rebellion. First, humanity was to gather quintillions of credits worth of rare minerals and resources, an amount so vast it would strip the planet bare. Second, 10,000 human specimens were to be delivered for study, never to return. Third, Earth was to swear eternal loyalty to the Galactic King, acknowledging its subservience to his rule. Failure to comply would result in total planetary annihilation. The message concluded with a chilling warning: humanity had 7 cycles equivalent to 1 Earth month to meet the demands. The envoy's presence ensured compliance, a silent sentry reminding Earth of its new place in the cosmic hierarchy. The declaration left humanity reeling. Governments scrambled to respond, but the truth was undeniable: the demands were impossible. Even if humanity emptied its coffers and mobilized every resource, it could not meet the tribute in time. Worse still, submission would leave Earth impoverished, enslaved, and hollowed out, a husk serving the Council's endless hunger for dominion. The Galactic Council was not bluffing. Countless other civilizations had faced similar ultimatums, and the results were well documented. Those who complied lived on as shadows of their former selves, subjugated and exploited. Those who resisted were wiped from existence, their planets scorched and left lifeless as warnings to others. Humanity's history, however, was different. It was not one of quiet submission. It was a history of resistance, of overcoming insurmountable odds, of standing defiant even when the cost was unbearable. When the Council's ultimatum spread across the globe, a rare and powerful unity took hold. There was no panic, no surrender, only resolve. In the days that followed, Earth's response shocked even its own leaders. Scientists, engineers, and strategists gathered in secret, their efforts coalescing around a single idea: survival required not submission, but defiance. To bow was to lose everything. To fight might still mean annihilation, but at least humanity would burn brightly, a beacon of resistance in a dark and cruel galaxy. As the envoy continued to hover in silent observation, humanity's factories roared to life. Satellites were decommissioned and repurposed. Ancient bunkers were reopened, and plans were drawn up for weapons that defied conventional thought. On the surface, Earth appeared passive, its people seemingly resigned to their fate. Beneath that veneer, however, humanity prepared for a fight that would become legend. The Council had seen Earth as just another primitive world. It would learn the error of that assumption in ways it could not yet imagine. The days following the Galactic Council's ultimatum were filled with a quiet urgency. Earth's leaders convened in secret, knowing the weight of their choices would determine the planet's fate. The Council's demands were insurmountable, and submission was not an option for a species that had survived centuries of war, plague, and struggle. Yet humanity had no military force capable of standing against such overwhelming power. Despite this, there was something unique about Earth's unyielding spirit, an ability to innovate and adapt under pressure that had carried humanity through its darkest moments. It was this spark that now fueled Earth's response. While governments broadcast their resignation to the world, a different narrative unfolded behind closed doors. Military leaders, scientists, engineers, and tech moguls joined forces in secret. Hidden facilities across the globe began working around the clock, pooling resources and knowledge. They knew that fighting the Council head-on was impossible, but they also understood something crucial. Humanity was not bound by the same limitations as other species. Earth had a history of turning disadvantage into strength, of bending the laws of nature with sheer willpower. The core of humanity's plan was audacious. It wasn't about gathering tribute or surrendering to the Council's demands. It wasn't even about preparing for a conventional battle. The plan, codenamed Operation Guillotine, was designed to level the playing field by taking the fight to the heart of the Galactic Council itself. If humanity could not match the Council's might and firepower, it would do something far more unexpected. It would make a statement so bold that the Council could not ignore it. The first step was to sabotage the incoming resources. Earth's leaders knew they didn't have the time or resources to craft a tribute large enough to meet the Council's demands. Instead, they focused on halting the flow of materials and technology to the invaders. Satellites once used for communication and exploration were turned into weapons. Solar-powered railguns, designed to send payloads into deep space, were now repurposed to disrupt the incoming resource shipments and prevent the Council from fortifying its position. Massive mining operations across the globe were shut down, and key facilities were hidden or destroyed before they could be taken by the invaders. Simultaneously, humanity began the construction of a device so complex and powerful that it would surprise even the Council. The project, codenamed Titan's Grip, was a vast, multi-tiered defense system. On the surface, it appeared to be nothing more than an energy grid designed to stabilize Earth's atmosphere against the expected electromagnetic pulses from the Council's weapons. In reality, it was far more than that. Hidden beneath its surface was a series of weaponized systems that could disable the Council's ships with pinpoint precision. The technology was borrowed from Earth's burgeoning space programs, but it was enhanced and re-engineered by the best minds humanity had to offer. The plan was to strike when the Council least expected it. As the days turned to weeks, Earth's silence grew. The Council's envoy ship continued to hover in orbit, waiting for the tribute that would never come. Its commanders, confident that humanity would soon bend to their will, failed to realize that the very thing they feared was already in motion. Beneath their noses, a new kind of resistance was taking shape, a resistance not just built on technology, but on a fundamental belief that humanity was not meant to be subjugated. By the time the Council's king prepared for his arrival on Earth, humanity was ready. The pieces had been set in place, and the countdown to the most daring plan in human history was about to reach its climax. The king, thinking he would be met with trembling subjects, would instead find a world determined to make its own destiny no matter the cost. The arrival of the Galactic King was nothing short of a spectacle. When he descended upon Earth, it wasn't with the quiet grace of a diplomatic envoy. No, the king arrived in a grandiose fashion, as if he were a deity descending to claim his dominion. His ship, a massive fortress of shimmering metal, parted the clouds and cast a shadow over the planet's surface, visible from every corner of the globe. His aura exuded an overwhelming sense of power, a reminder to humanity that this was not an invitation but a demand. The king was an imposing figure, towering above his retinue of lesser officials, his bio-enhanced armor gleaming under the sun. His very presence radiated an air of superiority, built from centuries of ruling countless worlds with an iron fist. No species had ever dared to defy the Council's demands without suffering total annihilation, but humanity, stubborn and rebellious to its core, was about to test the limits of that ancient rule. As his shuttle touched down in the designated collection zone, the king expected to see Earth's leaders kneeling before him, offering tribute, perhaps groveling for their continued existence. But when he stepped out onto the surface, there was nothing. No diplomats, no politicians, no throngs of human citizens ready to present their meek offerings. The area was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of distant machines. The king looked around, a slight frown on his face. He expected submission, but all he saw was emptiness. Where was the tribute? Where were the pitiful humans ready to bow to his greatness? For a moment, there was only silence, the tension in the air palpable. His commanders, standing behind him, were on edge. The arrogance of the king had failed to take into account the unpredictability of humanity, a species that thrived on defiance. The king took another step forward, his heavy boots leaving marks in the dust as he surveyed the scene. But as the king looked around, the ground beneath him began to tremble, faint at first, but then growing in intensity. Without warning, a low rumble erupted from below, and the earth split open. Massive machines, previously hidden beneath the surface, emerged in a mechanical roar. The king's eyes widened in shock. What he saw was nothing less than an elaborate trap, a network of complex devices designed not to serve him, but to hold him in place. It was a carefully crafted ambush, set by a species that had learned long ago how to survive against overwhelming odds. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had turned their greatest weakness, resource scarcity, into a strength by using the environment itself against their invaders. The king instinctively reached for his weapons, his hands moving with practiced precision. But before he could fully activate his shield, a massive energy pulse surged from one of the hidden arrays. It was a direct hit, one that struck with pinpoint accuracy and sent a shockwave through his reinforced armor. The king staggered, the powerful force momentarily knocking the wind out of him. The electromagnetic pulse, designed to disrupt his protective systems, had done its job. His once impenetrable armor began to flicker, a clear sign that the king, for all his strength, was not invincible. The king roared in fury, attempting to regain his composure, but his movements were slower now. His once imposing presence was shaken. Above him, the sky was filled with a network of satellites, their weapon systems now fully engaged. Humanity's machines swarmed around the king, drones darting in and out of the air like wasps, armed with laser-guided precision. The king's troops, having no preparation for such an onslaught, scrambled to defend their ruler, but they were already outclassed. The king's arrogance, the belief that no one could ever stand against the might of the Galactic Council, was now crumbling before his very eyes. What he had considered a primitive world, ripe for exploitation, was instead a planet that would fight for its very survival. Humanity had, against all odds, pulled off the impossible. They had taken the first step in a war that would change the galaxy forever. The king, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events, glared at the mechanical behemoths surrounding him. His mind raced, calculating his next move. But as the clouds parted above, he realized the bitter truth. Earth had turned the tables, and he was no longer in control. The king's mind raced as the realization sank in. He was not in control. His elite forces, skilled and battle-hardened, were scrambling to respond, but nothing they had prepared could counter the relentless wave of technological ingenuity coming from Earth. The unexpected assault had rattled the king's confidence. It wasn't just that humanity had dared to resist, it was the sheer audacity of their response that left him momentarily paralyzed. The machines that had sprung from the ground, their sleek designs hidden beneath the surface of the Earth, now surrounded him, closing in with relentless precision. At first, the king had thought the strange rumbling was simply an earthquake, a natural phenomenon caused by the gravity of his ship's descent. But as the ground had split open, revealing massive mechanical arms and energy conduits, his thoughts shifted from disbelief to anger. He had not expected this kind of resistance, not from a species so young, so backward in the eyes of the Council. His men, trained for combat with other species, were now like insects caught in a web, unable to break free. His armor's shield was faltering, its energy reserves quickly draining under the sustained onslaught of human-made electromagnetic pulses. Every second counted as he struggled to regain his bearings, but Earth's weapons were relentless, each pulse striking with brutal accuracy, forcing him to his knees. The king's forces, though still numerous and well-armed, were failing to make any progress. Their weapons, once thought to be unmatched in the galaxy, were ineffective against the unexpected energy shields humanity had designed. The alien invaders found themselves fighting a war they were not prepared for, facing a foe that fought with the ferocity of an animal cornered, but also with the cunning of a predator. The king rose to his feet, shaking off the disorientation, and activated his personal force field, a last line of defense against the barrage of attacks. The shimmering blue energy field flared to life around him, momentarily blocking the laser strikes and energy blasts. It bought him precious seconds to recalibrate, to reassess his position. But it also revealed a troubling reality. Humanity had anticipated this moment. They had planned for it. The king's first instinct was to flee, to call for reinforcements from the rest of the Galactic Council's fleet. But Earth's orbital platforms were already locking onto his position. The pulse weapons developed with technology scavenged from Earth's own satellites had proven far more effective than anything the Council had predicted. He knew that if he attempted to escape, humanity would pursue him with everything at their disposal. Their retaliation would be swift, and he might not survive it. The king's mind raced, but his options were narrowing. His elite soldiers had been deployed to secure him, but their numbers dwindled with each passing moment. The sheer number of drones, automated weapons systems, and powerful energy shields surrounding them made it impossible for them to regroup. The king, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, knew that this battle was lost, but he was a king he had never known defeat. He refused to accept the idea that he could be overthrown by a species considered insignificant by the Council. He commanded his forces to regroup, but the signals went unanswered. The Council's hierarchy had failed to provide the immediate support he had expected, and now even their superior numbers seemed useless against the relentless barrage of human ingenuity. As the king's forces were systematically wiped out, his personal shield flickered one final time, completely drained. The king, now fully exposed, looked up at the sky, his mind still racing for a way out. But all he saw were the countless eyes of humanity watching from orbit, their weapons trained on him, awaiting his next move. There would be no mercy. The weight of Earth's defiance was inescapable, and in that moment, the king realized that humanity's resolve could no longer be ignored. The trap had been set, and the king, for the first time in his life, was the prey. The fight was far from over, but the battle for Earth's freedom had already begun. As the king struggled to regain control, the inevitable became clear. Earth had turned the tables. What had begun as a simple, albeit arrogant, conquest had transformed into a humiliating display of humanity's resilience and cunning. The king, injured and vulnerable for the first time in centuries, realized that the situation had spiraled out of his control. His once impenetrable force field had been rendered useless, and his elite guards were incapacitated or in full retreat. His ship, which had seemed so invincible just hours earlier, now floated helplessly in Earth's orbit, its weapons systems disabled by the same technology that had brought down the king. At that moment, humanity's true strength became undeniable. They were not a species to be cowed. They were the predators now, and the king was their prey. Above him, a fleet of autonomous drones and human-operated craft hovered like vultures, circling, waiting for their moment. The king's massive form, once towering and imposing, now looked small and weak in the face of Earth's defiance. Humanity had not just captured the king, they had captured the imagination of the galaxy. Across countless star systems, word spread quickly of Earth's audacity. The very idea of such a small, primitive species challenging the Galactic Council was unfathomable, but humanity had done it. They had not just defied the Council, they had crippled its most powerful figure, its symbol of authority. The king had been brought low by a species they had dismissed as insignificant, and the consequences rippled far beyond the confines of Earth. The human leaders knew that this victory was more than just a tactical one. It was a statement. They had sent a message to the galaxy that would echo for centuries. This was no longer a world to be exploited. Earth was a force to be reckoned with, and its people were prepared to fight, to sacrifice, and to win. The king, now bound by chains forged from Earth's finest metals, hung from a great mechanical crane, his massive body suspended for all to see. It was a spectacle designed not to humiliate him alone, but to send a message across the stars. The king, once the embodiment of the Galactic Council's invincibility, was now a trophy, a warning to anyone who dared to challenge humanity's resolve. From every corner of Earth, people watched in awe. The once divided nations, separated by politics, ideologies, and borders, had been united by the singular purpose of defiance. Now, as the king's form swung in the wind, displayed like a piece of conquered prey, there was a sense of shared triumph. But beneath the surface of celebration, there was also the looming knowledge that this victory had only just begun. The Galactic Council would not simply walk away. Retribution would come, and when it did, humanity would be ready. But for now, the king was theirs, and Earth would savor this moment. Across the galaxy, the ramifications of Earth's victory began to unfold. The Council's reaction was swift and brutal, but it was also one of disbelief. How had this happened? How had a species considered insignificant risen up and shattered the foundation of their dominance? The answer lay not in the weapons or the technology, but in humanity's unyielding spirit. They had shown the galaxy that they could no longer be subjugated. They had proven that the Galactic Council was not invincible. Humanity's victory was more than just a triumph over an alien king. It was the beginning of a new era, one where Earth would no longer bow to anyone. The galaxy had been put on notice, and Earth was prepared to fight for its freedom no matter the cost. The king's hanging body was not just a symbol of humanity's strength, it was a declaration of war. For weeks, Earth had waited in uneasy silence, knowing that the Galactic Council's retribution would come. But despite the looming threat, the people of Earth had never been more united. They had defeated the king, an act that no one had thought possible, but now they faced an enemy far more dangerous than a single tyrant, the might of the entire Galactic Council. The Council, enraged by the king's capture and the humiliation it had endured at the hands of such a seemingly insignificant species, was already preparing its retaliation. The king's death had sent shockwaves through the Council's ranks, but the message it conveyed was clear. The Council's reign over the galaxy was not as absolute as they had believed. The leaders of the Council gathered, their thoughts turning cold and calculating as they formulated their plans. Earth had struck a blow to their power, and they would respond with force, erasing the upstart species from existence if necessary. But even as the Council gathered to plot their next move, Earth's leaders had already prepared. The victory over the king had revealed humanity's strength, but they knew this was only the beginning. Humanity's efforts had been swift and their victory had come as a surprise, but now they would have to fight for their very survival. Humanity's war preparations were not limited to weaponry or strategy. They had also begun to prepare for the psychological war that would come with the Council's inevitable retaliation. They knew that their victory, while significant, would not be enough to shield them from the wrath of the galaxy's most powerful empire. And so, every facet of society shifted into wartime mode. The global economy was converted to a war economy, with factories churning out everything from spacecraft to advanced weapons systems at an unprecedented rate. Resources that had once been used for luxury and leisure were now diverted toward war efforts. Across the planet, military personnel, engineers, scientists, and civilians worked together with a common goal: to ensure that Earth would not fall. The once divided nations had now become a unified front focused on a single objective: survival. The development of new weapons continued in secrecy, some so advanced that they seemed beyond anything the Council could have imagined. Earth scientists, many of whom had once worked on peaceful endeavors, now found themselves crafting devices of destruction that could match the Council's advanced technology. In space, humanity's fleet grew. A new generation of warships, sleek, deadly, and capable of taking on even the mightiest of the Council's ships, began to take shape. The world had learned that to survive, they needed more than just defense, they needed the ability to strike back. Every satellite, every military outpost, every orbital station was now a critical piece in the puzzle of humanity's survival. But it wasn't just technology that set humanity apart, it was the determination in the hearts of its people. From the war councils in the bunkers beneath the Earth's surface to the crowded streets of the world's cities, there was a shared understanding that this would be a long and brutal conflict. There would be no easy victories. The Galactic Council would not forgive their humiliation lightly. And yet, humanity's resolve was unbreakable. They had shown the galaxy once that they were not a species to be taken lightly, and now they were preparing to show the Council just how far they would go to protect their home. As the days passed, the Galactic Council prepared its forces for an invasion of Earth, an invasion that would not just be an attempt to reclaim lost honor, but an effort to extinguish a species that had dared to challenge their authority. The Council's ships, vast and numerous, were already on their way. Earth's skies darkened as their fleet assembled, the first wave of a deadly storm that would soon make its way to the surface. But Earth was ready. The countdown to humanity's final stand had begun, and every moment was a testament to their resolve. There was no turning back now. The battle for Earth's survival had become the defining conflict of humanity's existence. The next phase of the war would begin not in the far reaches of space, but in the skies above Earth, where the fate of an entire species would be decided. And for the first time in history, the Galactic Council found itself facing a threat it could not easily dismiss. The invasion was about to begin, and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. The invasion began with the speed and precision expected from the Galactic Council. Their ships, a fleet of hundreds of enormous war vessels, appeared in Earth's orbit like a gathering storm, their weapons primed and ready for the annihilation they believed would be swift. They had underestimated humanity once, and now they were determined to make sure they would not make the same mistake again. Earth's defense systems, however, were more than ready. The human fleet, though smaller in number, had been engineered to counter the overwhelming might of the Council's forces. Humanity had used every resource at its disposal to create ships and weapons that would level the playing field. The countdown had begun long before the first ship had entered the atmosphere, and Earth's war machines hummed to life with a unified purpose. The first wave of Council ships dropped from hyperspace with terrifying force, their arrival shaking the heavens. The space surrounding Earth was filled with the sound of energy shields, laser blasts, and the growls of engines as ships maneuvered into formation. Humanity's fleet met them head-on. A squadron of sleek, heavily armed warships that had been specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in the Council's defenses. Their weapons, derived from both reverse-engineered alien technology and human innovation, fired in rapid succession, sending shockwaves through the cold vacuum of space. The Galactic Council, once so confident in its unchallenged dominance, found itself under assault from every angle. Earth's warships, agile and deadly, darted through the massive Council fleet, dodging incoming fire with precision. Lasers and energy beams streaked through the dark expanse, illuminating the vast void as ships exploded, one after another. For the first time in their long history, the Council's vessels were forced to retreat, caught off guard by the sheer ferocity of humanity's resistance. As Earth's forces pushed the invaders back, the war on the ground intensified. The Council's invasion force had planned to strike major cities around the world, expecting to crush any remaining pockets of resistance. But Earth's defenses were already in place. The cities were prepared, the people ready. Walls of energy fields shimmered into existence, repelling the initial wave of attackers. Armies of drones, AI-controlled, and human soldiers fought side by side, pushing back the alien invaders inch by inch. The very soil of Earth had become a battlefield, and humanity was determined to hold every inch of it. The battles were brutal. The Council's forces were technologically superior in many respects, but humanity had something they lacked: an unbreakable will to survive. As alien soldiers flooded the streets, humanity's resistance fought tooth and nail, using guerrilla tactics, hidden traps, and improvised weapons to strike back at their attackers. They fought not just for victory, but for their right to exist. Yet, despite Earth's fierce resistance, the Council's forces began to regroup. The initial shock of humanity's strength was beginning to wear off, and the Council sent reinforcements, hoping to overwhelm Earth's defenses. New waves of ships arrived from beyond the stars, each one more massive than the last. The battle in space grew more intense, the skies lighting up with the explosive bursts of energy weapons. Humanity was holding its ground, but the odds were starting to turn against them. The Council's numerical superiority was beginning to take a toll on Earth's defenses. It was then, in the darkest hour of the conflict, that humanity's final weapon was unleashed. Hidden beneath the surface of Earth, in the deep caverns where the most advanced technology had been developed, a new device came online. The weapon, designed in secret and only partially understood by its creators, was a last-ditch effort to turn the tide of the war. It was a massive EMP pulse generator, capable of disabling any ship or technology within its reach. The device was humanity's trump card, a gamble that, if it worked, would destroy the Council's fleet and end the invasion. With everything at stake, the device was activated. A blinding pulse of energy shot into space, spreading across Earth's orbit like a tidal wave. The shockwave hit the Council's fleet with devastating force. Energy shields flickered, and warships once so mighty began to drop from the sky, their engines failing, their weapons silenced. The pulse swept through the fleet with merciless efficiency, crippling ship after ship, until the once unimaginable force of the Council's armada was reduced to a scattered wreckage in the heavens. The invasion had failed. The Council's retaliatory strike had been crippled, its superiority shattered in an instant. Earth's victory, hard-won and costly, had come with the devastating price of lives lost, cities destroyed, and a future uncertain. But humanity had done the impossible. They had repelled the might of the Galactic Council. As the last remnants of the invaders fled back into the depths of space, the people of Earth stood victorious. Their home was scarred, but they had proven to the galaxy that no force could subjugate them. Humanity had not just survived, they had risen, and they would never again bow to the will of any conqueror. Thank you for watching. What did you think of humanity's bold stand against the Galactic Council? Could this story be our future? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more epic tales from the stars. Until next time, keep dreaming of the infinite.